To read someone's mind, just ask them 5 questions. Did you know that psychologists estimate around 80 to 90% of what we fear or worry about never actually happens? Marcus Aurelius, writing nearly 2,000 years ago, already understood this truth. He wrote in his Meditations, "Today I escaped anxiety," or no, I discarded it because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside. Think about that. The emperor of Rome, carrying the weight of an entire empire, realized that the real prison is not the battlefield or the Senate, but our own unexamined thoughts. Now, let me bring this down to something more personal. Imagine you're sitting across from someone, a colleague, a partner, maybe even your teenage son. You want to know what's really going on in their mind. Not the small talk, not the "I'm fine" autopilot answers, but the truth, their hopes, their doubts, the beliefs they carry that shape every action. How do you get there? Do you guess? Do you read body language like some detective in a TV show? No. The most direct path into someone's inner world is far simpler and far more powerful than most people realize. It comes down to questions. The right 5 questions, to be exact. And when you learn them, you'll find they can open up another person's soul like nothing else. Reading someone's mind isn't about manipulation. It isn't about gaining leverage. It's about connection. Because here's the paradox of human beings. We spend so much energy hiding our true selves, and yet we're desperate to be understood. Socrates reminded us, "Know thyself is the beginning of wisdom." But if you've ever tried to build a marriage, lead a team, or raise a child, you know something else is just as important: knowing others. Because without understanding the minds around us, wisdom becomes lonely. So here's the promise of today's session. I'm going to give you 5 Stoic-inspired questions that cut through surface-level chatter and bring you face-to-face with the truth of who someone really is. I've used these questions in boardrooms, coffee shops, family dinners, even while stuck on a delayed flight with a stranger. They work because they bypass the masks we all wear. And before we dive into the first one, let me plant a little seed. The third question is the most powerful of all. It reveals the deepest values people often keep hidden, the parts of themselves they share only with those they truly trust. When you hear that one, you'll feel its weight. If this journey resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe, because this is just one doorway into the Stoic clarity we explore here on Stoic Insights 365. You and I are building something together: resilience, perspective, strength, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Let's begin. Question number 1. What's been the highlight of your week so far? Simple, right? But don't underestimate it. This question is a psychological scalpel. Where most people ask, "How's your week going?" and get the dull, autopilot answers, busy, fine, the usual, this one forces people to pause, reflect, and pinpoint something specific. And in doing so, they reveal what actually energizes them. I'll give you an example. Years ago, I had coffee with a colleague I didn't know very well. I skipped the usual small talk and asked, "What's been the highlight of your week so far?" She hesitated, then her whole face softened. "Honestly," she said, "helping my elderly neighbor move furniture. She was struggling, and I just wanted to make it easier for her." That told me everything. She didn't highlight a personal victory or a business milestone. Her energy came alive when she spoke about serving someone else. Right then, I knew her values: service over success, relationships over recognition. Months later, when I needed a rock-solid teammate for a sensitive project, she was my first call, and she proved me right. This is where the Stoic lens helps. Marcus Aurelius said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself. in your way of thinking. When someone tells you their highlight, they're really telling you what the very little is for them. For some, it's recognition. For others, it's laughter around the dinner table. For others still, it's the quiet satisfaction of learning something new. Pay attention to how their whole demeanor shifts when they share. Do their eyes light up? Does their voice grow louder, faster, more alive? That's not small talk anymore. You're watching them connect with the essence of what matters to them. And here's the kicker. This question not only tells you about them, it tells you how to work with them, lead them, or love them. A career-focused highlight reveals someone who thrives on achievement. A family-focused one shows someone who's anchored in relationships. A garage organizing highlight, believe it or not, shows someone who craves order and completion. But sometimes, the silence speaks louder. When someone struggles to answer or says, "I can't think of anything," that's data too. It may mean they're overwhelmed. It may mean they're not reflecting on their life at all. It may even mean they're stuck in a season where the good moments are slipping past unnoticed. And that insight is gold, because now you know where connection is most needed. Here's your challenge. Try this question this week, with your partner, a friend, or even a stranger. Don't just listen to the words, watch for the spark. That's where their values are hiding. And remember, once you know what energizes someone, you hold the key to deeper trust, stronger collaboration, and more meaningful relationships. That's the first doorway. But the second one, that's where we shift from what energizes someone to how they grow, change, and evolve. Question number 2 is about to uncover whether someone is truly humble enough to learn or too rigid to adapt.
And the answer to that reveals more about character than any resume ever could. Question number 2. What's something you used to believe that you don't believe anymore? Now, if the first question showed us what energizes someone, this one reveals something deeper: their relationship with growth and humility. It's easy to ask people about their opinions today, but the real test of character isn't what they think now. It's whether they've ever changed their mind. Because life will test us. Circumstances shift. And the person who clings to old, outdated beliefs is like a sailor who refuses to adjust his sails when the wind changes. Epictetus once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." This question exposes whether someone is still learning or locked inside their own pride. Let me give you a story. Years ago, I was interviewing a candidate for a leadership role. His resume was flawless. Impeccable track record, confident answers, polished delivery. But I wasn't interested in polish. I wanted to see whether he could evolve. So I asked, "What's something you used to believe that you no longer believe?" He paused, a good sign. Then he said, "I used to believe that working longer hours made me more productive. I thought leaving the office late was a badge of honor. But I learned that my so-called lazy colleagues who left at 5 p.m. were actually producing better results than me because they worked smarter." That answer did 3 things instantly. First, it showed humility. He admitted he was wrong. Second, it revealed adaptability. He could adjust based on evidence. Third, it showed wisdom. He realized productivity isn't about hours, but about focus. That man became one of the most effective leaders I ever worked with. His answer to that single question predicted his future success more accurately than any technical assessment could have. Now, compare that to another conversation I had. I asked the same question to a potential business partner. He smiled and said, "Honestly, I can't really think of anything. I've always been pretty good at getting it right the first time." Sounds confident, right? But in reality, that answer screamed danger. Because if you've lived 40 or 50 years without ever changing your mind, either you haven't been paying attention or you're too rigid to admit it. Both are red flags. Here's the power of this question. It doesn't just reveal what they once believed. It reveals how they process growth. Do they change because they reflect? Because they listen to feedback? Because they study and learn? Or only when life hits them so hard they have no choice? Knowing this helps you predict how they'll handle future challenges. I'll give you another example. A friend once told me, "I used to believe asking for help was weakness. I thought I had to solve everything myself to prove I was strong."
Now I realize asking for help is actually wisdom. It shows you value results more than ego. That's humility in action. That's growth. That's someone you can trust in a team because they won't let pride block progress. Seneca reminds us every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. To change a belief is to let go of an old self. And the people who can do that with grace are the ones who become resilient, adaptable, and wise. Now, how do you use this in real life? Next time you're interviewing someone, considering a partnership, or even just deepening a friendship, drop this question. Listen carefully, not only to the content, but to the tone. Do they show shame when they admit they were wrong, or pride? Healthy people treat changing their mind as a sign of growth, not failure. Watch for phrases like, "I learned," or "I discovered." That's the language of someone who sees life as a teacher. And here's a Stoic twist. You can also ask this question of yourself. What's something you used to believe that you no longer believe? I'll go first. I once believed that stress was an unavoidable part of ambition, that to achieve big goals you had to carry the weight of anxiety on your back. But the Stoics showed me otherwise. They taught me that stress isn't a requirement, it's a choice. The obstacle isn't the deadline or the workload, it's my perception of them. And once I let go of that belief, I found myself not only calmer, but more effective. So ask yourself, what old beliefs are you still dragging around? Which ones need to end so a new beginning can rise? Because once you've understood someone's capacity for growth, you're ready for the next step. And this next question, it goes even deeper. It cuts past behavior and growth and straight into the soul. It reveals someone's core values, the things they will protect, fight for, and never compromise on. Question number 3 is the heart of it all. And it's the one that has surprised me the most in my own life. Stay with me, because what you'll discover next could change how you see people forever. Question number 3. If you could change one thing about how people treat each other, what would it be? This is the heartbeat question. The first revealed what energizes someone, the second exposed their capacity for growth, but this one, it cuts past all defenses and shines a light on their deepest values. Why is this so powerful? Because people don't always tell you their values directly. They might say they believe in honesty, but then lie to avoid discomfort. They might say they care about kindness, but act harshly when stressed. But when you ask what they'd change about human behavior, you bypass their masks. They project their own experiences, their pains, and their highest ideals right into the answer. And here's the brilliance. It feels safe. You're not asking, "What's wrong with you?" You're asking, "What's wrong with us?" That little shift opens the door.
They're free to speak their truth without feeling judged, yet what they reveal is profoundly personal. I remember a dinner conversation with a potential business partner. We had been circling around projects, opportunities, numbers, but I wasn't sure if our values aligned. So I asked him this question. He paused, looked down at his glass, then said, "I wish people would stop making promises they don't intend to keep. It corrodes trust." That answer told me everything. Integrity wasn't just a word for him. He had been wounded by broken promises. He valued reliability so deeply that even small breaches felt corrosive. And because I knew this, I could see exactly how he would operate in business, how serious he'd be about commitments. 2 years later, he proved me right. He was the most reliable partner I ever had. He'd call if he was running 5 minutes late. He never overpromised. and when he gave his word, it was gold. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor." Values are the same. The thing people crave in relationships is often what they've been deprived of. Someone who longs for honesty has likely been deceived. Someone who craves compassion has likely been treated harshly. Someone who asks for patience has probably been judged too quickly. Their answer is a map of their wounds and their ideals all at once. Let's break it down. When people answer this question, you'll hear one of three tones. Frustration. These are people who've been hurt deeply. I wish people would stop lying. I wish people would stop judging. Their answers carry pain, but that pain is insight. It tells you what not to violate in your relationship with them. Hope. These people answer with vision. I wish people would listen more. I wish people would show gratitude. Their tone is lighter, full of possibility. They see how humanity could improve, and they believe it can. Resignation. These people answer with a sigh. I wish people would stop being selfish, but that'll never change. You'll feel the weight in their words. This reveals not only their values, but also their worldview, how much faith they have left in human potential. Now, let me give you some real examples. A colleague once said, "I wish people would stop trying to fix others." That one sentence told me volumes. She valued acceptance over judgment. She had probably been on the receiving end of a lot of helpful criticism. And sure enough, in team projects, she was the one who created harmony by letting people be themselves instead of forcing them into molds. Another person told me, "I wish people would be more grateful." Instantly, I knew he valued appreciation. He probably felt overlooked in his life, and when I worked with him, I noticed how much he thrived when acknowledged. Just a small thank you lit him up. Here's what makes this question so powerful. It reveals not just what people say they want, but how they believe relationships work.
It's their philosophy of human connection. Epictetus once advised, "Know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly." But when you ask this question, you're discovering not just who they are, but how they expect others to behave. This is the unspoken contract they carry into every relationship. So how do you use this? First, ask the question. Then listen not just to the answer, but to the emotion underneath. Second, reflect it back to them. If they say, "I wish people would listen more," you can show them you've understood by becoming the one who listens deeply. If they say, "I wish people would keep their word," then double down on reliability. Suddenly, you're not just talking, you're building trust at the deepest level. This is more than a question. It's a mirror. It reflects someone's ideals, their pain, and their blueprint for trust. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it. Now imagine you've uncovered someone's values. You know what they crave in relationships. That's priceless insight. But there's still one more thing you need to know: how they handle pressure. Because values are one thing in theory, but life doesn't test us in calm waters. It tests us in storms. And that's what the fourth question reveals. Question number 4 will show you how someone reacts when life pushes them beyond their comfort zone. It's the ultimate test of adaptability, courage, and hidden strength. And it might just shock you. Question number 4. What's a decision you made that surprised even yourself? This is one of my favorites, because values tell you what someone believes, but decisions, especially surprising ones, tell you who they really are. Life constantly puts us in situations where our comfort zone isn't enough. And in those moments, people reveal qualities they didn't even know they had. Courage, creativity, compassion, resilience. By asking this question, you uncover how someone handles the unexpected. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When someone shares a decision that shocked even themselves, you see whether they lean into that power or hide from it.
I remember asking this in a team meeting years ago. Everyone went around the table. Then Sarah, one of the quietest, most risk-averse people on the team, spoke up. She said, "I once quit my corporate job to start a food truck. I had no culinary background, no safety net, but something inside me wanted to create with my own hands." The entire room fell silent. Nobody had ever seen that side of her. But suddenly, I knew she wasn't just cautious and reliable. She had hidden fire, entrepreneurial courage, and a willingness to leap into the unknown. Later, when we needed someone to lead an innovative project, I thought of Sarah first, and she thrived. This question is a flashlight in the dark. Some people will answer easily, with pride.
Others will struggle, revealing that they rarely step outside the boundaries of habit. One man I asked shrugged and said, "I've never really done anything that surprised me. I'm pretty consistent." Sounds stable, but what it actually revealed was rigidity, a reluctance to test himself against discomfort. And that told me all I needed to know about how he'd respond when chaos arrived. Contrast that with another story. A colleague once told me, "I've always hated public speaking. I'm naturally introverted. But one day, I surprised myself by volunteering to give a presentation at a huge industry conference. My hands shook, my voice cracked, but by the end, I actually enjoyed it." That single answer showed me resilience, self-awareness, and growth. It revealed not just what he could do, but what he could become. Here's where modern psychology intersects with Stoicism. Psychologists talk about the growth edge, the place where fear meets possibility. Stoics called it living according to nature, stretching into the challenges life brings rather than retreating. When someone shares their surprising decision, they're telling you how they relate to their growth edge. Do they avoid it or embrace it? And notice their tone. Do they tell the story with pride, with regret, with curiosity? Someone who beams with pride is learning to own their courage. Someone who shares regret may have jumped without wisdom or may fear risk altogether. But someone who shares with curiosity, that's the sweet spot. That's someone who sees life as a constant experiment, full of chances to discover hidden strength. Think of it this way. This question doesn't just tell you about the past, it predicts the future. The person who once shocked themselves by standing up to authority might do it again when injustice arises. The one who once surprised themselves by helping a stranger might reveal compassion in ways you'd never expect. The one who once chased a crazy creative dream may become the innovator who changes your team or even the world. Marcus Aurelius put it beautifully. Adapt yourself to the life you have been given, and truly love the people with whom destiny has surrounded you. Adaptation is the heart of this question. Do they adapt to life with courage, with resignation, with creativity? Their answer will show you. So here's my challenge to you. Ask yourself this question tonight. What's a decision you made that surprised even you? Write it down. Then ask, what does that reveal about me? What hidden strength or hidden fear did it expose? This reflection is not just about understanding others, it's about knowing yourself more deeply. Because when you've learned someone's values, question 3, and seen how they adapt under surprise, question 4, you're standing at the doorway of the ultimate insight. The fifth and final question cuts past all masks, all defenses, and reveals their truest desires, the thing they would do if nothing stood in their way.
Question number 5 is the soul question, and it will show you what someone actually longs for in this life. Stay with me. It's the most revealing question of them all. Question number 5. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? This is the soul question. It bypasses fear. It strips away excuses. It silences the inner critic and goes straight to the deepest desire. When you ask this, you're not just hearing about someone's plans.
You're hearing about the life they secretly long for. Think about it. Every day, people edit themselves. They choose the safe path, the practical job, the dream that feels small enough to avoid disappointment. But when you take failure off the table, even just hypothetically, you unlock what they truly want. I remember a close friend who felt stuck in her career. For months, she complained about her boss, her lack of purpose, her boredom. But when I asked, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? Her entire face transformed. She didn't even pause. I'd open a counseling practice for teenagers, she said, a safe space where they could talk about depression, identity, family struggles without judgment. That moment was electric. Her voice carried conviction she had never shown before. And 6 months later, she enrolled in a counseling program. That one question unlocked the door she'd been too afraid to open. The Stoics understood this dynamic. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Most people waste it because they fear failing. They'd rather shrink their lives than risk disappointment. But this question flips the script. It forces people to imagine life without fear. And in doing so, it reveals their truest compass. Here's what you'll notice when you ask it. Some people answer instantly, with passion. That means the dream is alive, just buried. Others hesitate, struggling. That hesitation often means they've disconnected from themselves. They've been told their desires don't matter, or that it's childish to dream. And that's valuable too, because it shows you where encouragement is needed. I once asked this to a client who immediately said, "I'd travel to every country and document disappearing cultures." That answer revealed not just wanderlust, but a deep drive for preservation and storytelling. Another person said, "I'd start a foundation to provide free education to kids." That revealed justice, compassion, and a commitment to legacy. And sometimes the answers are deeply personal. I'd be the parent I never had. I'd write the book that scares me. I'd tell the truth even when it costs me. This question is like peeling away armor. It shows you the dream behind the mask. And when you see that dream, you understand everything else. Their motivations, their frustrations, their hidden strengths. But don't just listen to the words. Listen for the energy shift. Do their eyes light up? Does their voice grow stronger?
That energy is the truest signal. That's the fire Marcus Aurelius spoke of when he wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." This question reveals the color of someone's soul. Now, let's bring it back to you. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Don't dismiss it. Don't censor it. Write it down. Because that answer is not random. It's your true direction. And maybe, just maybe, failure isn't the enemy you think it is. Maybe failure is just the training ground, preparing you for the very dream you've been hiding. And here's the final insight. Once you've asked all 5 questions, you don't just understand someone, you connect with them. You see their highlights, their growth, their values, their courage, and their dreams. That's not conversation, that's transformation. Epictetus said it best, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." When you ask these 5 questions, you're giving people permission to be vulnerable, to dream, to admit their mistakes, to reveal who they really are. And in doing so, you're not just reading minds, you're building trust. So here's my invitation. Try one of these questions this week. Don't interrogate, just ask, and then listen. Really listen. Notice the spark, the shift, the pause. That's where the truth lives. And if this helped you see the power of connection through Stoic clarity, like this video so others can discover it too.
Subscribe to Stoic Insights 365, because this is just the beginning of what ancient wisdom can do in your modern life. Now, before we close, let me give you a preview of where we're heading next. Because everything we've covered here, the 5 questions, the insights, the Stoic lens, is building toward one of the most powerful Stoic secrets of all. One that doesn't just change how you connect with others, but how you live every single day. In the next section, I'll reveal the Stoic practice that rewired my own life from the inside out. It's simple, but it's not easy. And once you hear it, you'll never see your mornings or your struggles the same way again. So here we are. We've walked through the 5 questions, the highlight that reveals energy, the belief shift that uncovers growth, the values question that cuts to the soul, the surprise decision that exposes adaptability, and the dream question that reveals ultimate desire. Now, let's pause for a moment. Imagine actually using these questions. Picture yourself sitting with your partner, or your son, or a colleague who's been distant. Instead of small talk, you lean in and ask, "What's been the highlight of your week?" Watch their eyes light up. Or you ask, "What's something you used to believe that you no longer believe?" And suddenly the conversation turns from surface to depth. This is not theory, it's practice. It's the difference between connections that feel shallow and ones that change lives. The Stoics weren't philosophers in ivory towers.
They were soldiers, emperors, slaves, parents, people living in the grit of reality. And what they all understood was this: true resilience isn't built alone, it's built in relationship. With yourself, with others, with the world. These 5 questions are just the beginning. They're tools to see the truth, not just in others, but in yourself. Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. These questions help others say what they would be. They help you see them clearly, without illusions. And once you do, you can build trust, collaboration, love, and leadership on solid ground. But here's the twist. It's not enough to just understand others. You have to master your own mind, too. Because if you don't, all the insight in the world won't matter. You'll know someone's values, but you'll still snap at them in anger. You'll know their dreams, but you'll still let fear silence your encouragement. You'll know what energizes them, but you'll still be too distracted to notice. That's where Stoicism comes in, not just as a philosophy of thought, but as a daily practice. And one of the most powerful practices the Stoics used is what I want to share with you next. It's simple, it's ancient, and it can transform your mornings, your mindset, and your entire approach to resilience. It's called the Stoic morning reflection. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Each day he would prepare himself by rehearsing in his mind the challenges ahead. He expected obstacles, he expected frustration. And by expecting them, he disarmed them. Here's how it works. Each morning, before the noise of the world floods in, you take a few minutes to anticipate. You ask yourself, what challenges will I face today? Who might test my patience? Where could I be tempted to react rather than respond? And then you choose in advance how you'll meet them. With calm, with courage, with virtue. It sounds simple, but this practice is life-changing. It means you're no longer caught off guard. Instead of being ambushed by life, you meet it like a seasoned warrior, prepared. And here's why this matters right after learning the 5 questions. Because if you want to connect with others at the deepest level, you have to first stabilize yourself. You can't listen for someone's soul if you're consumed by your own storms. You can't see their values clearly if you're blinded by anger or fear. So here's where we're going next. I'll walk you through the Stoic morning reflection in detail. I'll show you how to structure it, how to make it practical, and how to use it not just to survive the day, but to master it. And I'll also share the Stoic evening practice, the bookend to the day, that makes sure every day becomes a step forward, not just another blur in your memory.
It's built in the small daily choices, morning by morning, night by night. And in the next section, we'll unlock exactly how to do that. The Stoic morning reflection. It sounds simple, almost too simple. But let me tell you, this practice has saved me countless times from falling into anger, distraction, or despair before the day even began. Here's how it works. When you wake up, instead of grabbing your phone and letting the world dictate your mind, you pause, you breathe, and you remind yourself, today I will meet obstacles. Today I will face people who may be ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, jealous, or selfish. Those aren't my words, they're Marcus Aurelius's. He wrote them almost 2,000 years ago in Meditations, and you know what? He wasn't being negative, he was being prepared. Think about it. If you expect life to be smooth, every bump feels like an outrage. But if you expect bumps, you glide over them like a skilled driver on a rough road. That's what the Stoics practiced, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, not to dwell on fear, but to prepare the mind for reality. Here's a simple example. Imagine you've got a big meeting today. You're hoping everything runs smoothly, but traffic hits, your colleague shows up late, and someone challenges your ideas aggressively. If you expected smoothness, you're frustrated, thrown off balance. But if you expected challenge, you're ready. You walk in calm, steady, and centered. Everyone else reacts. You respond. That's Stoic resilience in action. Now, how do you actually practice this? Let me give you a framework. Anticipate. Ask yourself, what challenges might I face today? Be honest. Who might test my patience? What tasks might overwhelm me? Don't sugarcoat it. Face it before it happens. Prepare. Decide in advance how you'll respond. If my colleague interrupts me, I'll breathe before replying. If traffic slows me down, I'll use the time to reflect instead of rage. By preparing your reaction, you strip obstacles of their power. Anchor. Pick one Stoic principle to carry through the day. Maybe it's patience. Maybe it's courage. Maybe it's justice. Hold it like a compass, guiding every interaction. When you start your day this way, nothing surprises you. The world may still throw punches, but you've already decided you won't flinch. And let me share something personal here. For years, my mornings started with chaos, emails, deadlines, racing thoughts. I'd walk into my day already reactive. But when I began practicing Stoic reflection, everything shifted. I started anticipating challenges instead of resenting them. And the result? Less stress, more control, a deeper sense of calm, even in chaos. Modern psychology backs this up. Studies on implementation intentions show that when people plan in advance how they'll respond to challenges, they're far more likely to follow through calmly. The Stoics discovered this centuries ago, without lab coats or data. They simply lived it.
So here's your challenge. Tomorrow morning, before the world gets in your head, sit quietly for 3 minutes. Ask, what will test me today? And how will I respond? Write it down if you can. Then carry that mindset into your day. And don't underestimate how powerful this is. Because when you start each day prepared, you live with intention, not reaction. But the Stoics didn't stop there.
If the morning reflection prepared them, the evening reflection completed the cycle. It turned every day into a lesson, every mistake into wisdom, and every success into gratitude. In the next section, we'll dive into the Stoic evening practice, the secret ritual Marcus Aurelius and Seneca used to turn ordinary days into extraordinary growth. And once you learn it, you'll never end a day the same way again. If the morning reflection sets the tone for the day, the evening reflection seals the lesson. The Stoics knew that each day is a classroom. And like any classroom, the learning isn't complete until you review what happened. Seneca described this practice vividly. He said, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and measure my deeds and words." Imagine that. Every night, the great Stoic philosopher ran an audit on himself, not to judge harshly, but to grow wisely. Here's how it works. At the end of the day, before you collapse into bed, you ask yourself 3 simple questions. What did I do well today? Recognize progress, however small. Maybe you stayed calm in traffic. Maybe you listened more attentively to a loved one. Celebrate it. What did I do poorly? Be honest without cruelty. Did you snap in irritation? Did you waste time scrolling? Did you miss an opportunity to show courage? Note it clearly. What will I do differently tomorrow? This is the pivot. It turns mistakes into fuel. It says, yes, I stumbled, but tomorrow I'll rise stronger. This practice is deceptively simple, but let me show you its power. I once struggled with anger in meetings. I'd get defensive, sharp, and regret my tone later. But when I started evening reflection, I saw the pattern. Every night I'd write, "Lost my patience in discussion," over and over. After a week, I couldn't deny it. The reflection shined a light on what I'd been ignoring. And slowly, I began preparing better, breathing deeper, responding calmer. Within months, people noticed the shift. Not because I preached Stoicism, but because I practiced it. Modern psychology echoes this. Researchers call it self-regulation through reflection. When you review your day, you activate your brain's learning circuits. Mistakes become feedback. Successes become reinforcement. And instead of drifting through life, you live it with intention. Here's the Stoic brilliance. This isn't about guilt. It's about growth. Seneca didn't shame himself at night. He observed. He learned. He adjusted. That's why his reflections didn't make him heavy. They made him free.
So, here's your challenge. Tonight, before bed, spend 5 quiet minutes in reflection. Ask the 3 questions. Write your answers if you can. Then close your eyes, not in defeat, but in peace, knowing tomorrow is another chance. When you combine morning and evening reflections, you create a rhythm. In the morning, you anticipate. At night, you review. Over time, this rhythm carves resilience into your character. You stop drifting. You start steering. And life begins to feel less like chaos and more like a craft. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." These daily practices move you from argument to action, from theory to embodiment, from knowing to being. Now let's connect the dots. We've learned how to ask others powerful questions. We've learned how to prepare our own mind in the morning. We've learned how to review it at night. But resilience isn't just about questions or reflections. It's about habits. The tiny rituals that stack up into unshakable strength. And in the next section, we'll explore the Stoic habits
that create lasting resilience. Practices so small you could overlook them, but so powerful they can shape the entire trajectory of your life. We've talked about questions. We've talked about morning and evening reflections. Now let's go one level deeper. The habits that make resilience automatic. Here's the truth. Big breakthroughs aren't what make you stoic. It's the small, repeated actions. The choices so ordinary you almost miss them. The way you breathe in traffic. The way you respond to criticism. The way you pause before speaking. That's where resilience is forged. Epictetus said, "Small-minded people blame others. Average people blame themselves. The wise see all blame as useless." That kind of perspective doesn't appear overnight. It comes from habits. Habits that train the mind, just like lifting weights trains the body. So, what are those habits? Let's look at 3 that can change everything. 1. The pause habit. Before you react, pause. Someone insults you? Pause. Your child spills the milk? Pause. Your boss criticizes your work unfairly? Pause. In that pause, you choose your response. Without it, your emotions choose for you. The Stoics called this prohairesis, your power of choice. Modern psychology calls it stimulus and response. The pause is the space that gives you freedom. Practice it until it becomes instinct.
He'd eat coarse food, wear rough clothes, and remind himself, "Is this what I feared?" Today, you can do the same. Take a cold shower, skip a meal, walk instead of driving. These small acts teach you that comfort is optional, and that you're stronger than your cravings. When real hardship comes, you won't be shaken, because you've already trained your body and mind. Now, let's be real. These habits aren't glamorous. Nobody will applaud you for pausing in traffic or taking a cold shower. But these small practices, repeated daily, carve resilience into your nervous system. They make calm your default setting. Think of resilience like compound interest. You don't notice much at first, but over weeks, months, years, the growth is undeniable. The man who pauses instead of exploding earns trust. The woman who practices gratitude builds joy. The person who trains in discomfort walks into storms unshaken. That's the Stoic path. And let's connect this to modern science for a moment. Research on neuroplasticity shows that repeated habits literally rewire your brain. What you practice, you become. The Stoics discovered this intuitively. They weren't just surviving Rome's chaos, they were training their minds daily, one small habit at a time. So here's your challenge. Pick one habit: pause, gratitude, or voluntary discomfort. Practice it for a week. Notice what changes. Then add another. Over time, you'll build a life that's unshakable, not because it's easy, but because you're trained. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That wasn't morbid. It was motivation. Habits are how we live ready, so that if life ended tomorrow, we'd meet it with strength, not regret. Now, we're almost at the end. We've built from questions to reflections to habits. But there's one final piece we need to put in place. It's the keystone, the one Stoic truth that holds all the others together. Without it, the questions, the reflections, the habits, they're just fragments. With it, everything clicks into place. In the final section, I'll reveal the ultimate Stoic secret, the one that transformed emperors, freed slaves, and still has the power to transform you today. We've covered a lot together. 5 powerful questions to read someone's mind, not with tricks, but with connection. The morning reflection to prepare your soul for the day. the evening reflection to harvest wisdom from your actions, and the small habits that practice daily build resilience into your very bones. But now, let me share the ultimate Stoic secret, the one that binds all of this together. It's simple, it's not flashy, and yet it's the most liberating truth you'll ever practice. Here it is. You cannot control the world, but you can always control your response. That's it. The Stoics called it the dichotomy of control.
Epictetus put it like this: some things are up to us, and some are not. Everything we've discussed, the questions, the reflections, the habits, they only work if you remember this truth. You can't control whether someone keeps their promises, but you can control whether you keep yours. You can't control whether traffic snarls your commute, but you can control whether you curse at it or use it as a moment of reflection. You can't control whether you'll face loss, criticism, or injustice, but you can control whether you respond with bitterness or with dignity. This isn't just philosophy, it's freedom. Because once you stop wasting energy on what you cannot control, all that energy floods back into what you can: your choices, your mindset, your character. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's the Stoic blueprint. That's the path to unshakable resilience. So here's your step-by-step guide to putting all of this into practice starting today. Ask one of the 5 questions in your next conversation. Pick the one that feels most natural. See where it leads. Tomorrow morning, practice reflection. Anticipate the challenges and decide how you'll respond. Tonight, review your day. What went well? What didn't? What will you adjust tomorrow? Pick one habit. Pause before reacting. Practice gratitude or lean into voluntary discomfort. Stick with it for a week. Remember the dichotomy of control. Whenever frustration rises, ask yourself, is this up to me? If not, let it go. If yes, act with virtue. Do this consistently, and you won't just be learning Stoicism, you'll be living it. You'll become the kind of person others trust, respect, and look to for strength. And let me leave you with this. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Don't waste your time trying to control what's beyond your reach. Instead, master what is always within your grasp, your response. That's how you build resilience. That's how you cultivate wisdom. That's how you live free. If this journey through Stoic practice has been valuable to you, hit like so others can find it too. Subscribe to Stoic Insights 365 because this is just the beginning. And if you want to go deeper, check out the next video in this series. It'll show you how to build a Stoic morning routine that sets you up for victory no matter what the day throws at you. Remember, resilience is built, not born. And with Stoicism as your guide, you already have everything you need to build it.